Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Muscle and Mind podcast. My name is Rory John O'Sullivan, and our whole mission here is to learn how to build better bodies and brains so we can perform at our best in work, life, and play. I'm very excited to have my first official guest here with me today. This guy, I've been following him for a long time on social media. His content really stood out to me because to me, it is a simple, no bullshit, practical approach, not only to fitness, but just to living a healthier life physically and mentally. So, Mr. Tanner Shuck, man, thank you so much for being here, man. I really appreciate it. How are you?
Hey, Rory, it's my pleasure. It's an honor to be, your first guest on your podcast. And as I told you before, I think it's great anytime trainers are putting out content and trying to build an audience and trying to provide more value to people. And this sounds stupid, but the internet is truly amazing, and you're able to reach so many more people with the internet, bro. So good on you, man. Very good on you.
I appreciate it, man. And yeah, man, that's what I said. I'm just so stoked to have you here because, like I was saying in the intro, man, your content honestly just caught my eye, right? Because I was scrolling through Instagram, and as you know, man, there's a bunch of stuff online, especially in the fitness space. And I can't remember exactly which video it was, but like it was one of your videos. All of your videos have this theme, to be honest, where you were just kind of like straightforward, right? You were like, you want this, do that, stop fucking around. And like, I appreciate that so much, man. So yeah, man, I just a few questions. Firstly, what is your backstory, man? Because I mean, I saw you pop up, kind of explode. Like, what is your backstory? Like, where are you from? How did you get here?
So I'll make it quick, dude. This is the thing that's so fucked up about social media. Long story short, I've been playing sports my whole life. I've always loved working out. I played football in high school and in college. And when I couldn't play football anymore, then I just decided that I'm just going to work out for a living. And I know that sounds crazy, but that's literally the thought process that I had when I was like 22 or 23. And that's right when I discovered CrossFit.
Mm-hmm.
So I got into competitive CrossFit right after I finished playing college football. And I had a lot of success with that. I say that with humility, but that's what CrossFit is what brought me to Dubai. There was a big competition here, Dubai Fitness Championship. I came in, did the competition, did well. I got offered a job coaching CrossFit. So that's what got my foot in the door here in Dubai in the Middle East. And the next year I won the competition. I made money working out. I've made a lot more money working out than most people ever have. All right. And including a lot of CrossFit Games athletes. And I still am extremely passionate about fitness, and I still train really hard, even though it's like 10 years later, I'm 36. But then I just realized I couldn't be a in-person trainer or a CrossFit coach forever. I just wasn't reaching and helping enough people. And like my career, had kind of plateaued. And I was only reaching the people that were coming into my gym. And I kind of had the realization, like, dude, if I want to make fitness a career, I have to start building a social media following. So that's what I did, man. Back in like 2018, 2019, I started taking social media more seriously. And I just put out content that meant something to me. And I have a message. And I just started putting out that message on a daily basis. And, eventually, after a lot of consistent hard work and a lot of consistent posting on Instagram and also YouTube, I've been able to gain some traction. But that's my story kind of in a nutshell.
That's amazing, man. And so then just to clarify, you're from the States originally, is that correct?
Apologies. Yes, I'm from Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Oh, awesome, man.
Originally,
I've
but
just always
I
wondered.
live,
I kind of picked up your accent, but I never knew
yeah,
exactly where to place
yeah.
it. All right.
I'm from Tulsa, Oklahoma, but I live in Dubai. I've lived in Dubai for the past 10 years.
Wow. And I mean, you must
Yeah.
have seen a huge transformation in the last 10 years living there, right?
Oh, this changed a lot, man. It's changed a
Yeah.
lot. But I still like living here. It's a pretty
Mhm.
great place to live. It's got a strong fitness scene. Quality of life is good. It's a sand pit, but a lot of places in the Middle East are. But it's home now. So
Yeah.
fortunate. But it's changed a lot. It's definitely gotten a lot more, I guess, popular as well.
Mhm. And that's interesting, man. And so you say you had a football background, and were you just playing football in college? Were you in any other kind of career before you came over to do CrossFit? Or like, did you have any other career path in mind before you found
Yeah,
PT?
yeah. Yeah. I did actually. So once I finished up playing college football and I couldn't play professionally, or like the chances of making any kind of money playing professionally were slim to none. I did get a job as a roughneck, meaning like I was working on like an oil rig, and I got that job through my buddy that was on my team. His dad got me the job, and I only wanted that job because you can make a good amount of money doing hard physical labor. And I don't mind hard physical labor at all, at all. That's why I've got into working out, and that's why I was so good at CrossFit. Because I'll just, if you tell me to fucking do some kind of physical work, I'll fucking do it.
Right.
And anyways, but I realized that job was not what I wanted at all. I had to work 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off, and I wasn't able to train on the 2 weeks on the job because I was literally working all day. And it was just not it was a really good experience because I learned what I did not want to do, but it was a terrible job, and it made, for me, a terrible job. And it made me realize, wow, I just need to go all in on fitness. So that's what I did.
That's amazing, man. And it's interesting. I mean, I had a similar experience. Definitely a completely different career path than working on the rig. But I was actually a lawyer before. And as I
Oh,
was going
shit.
through that, yeah, so like I mean, up until I mean, I graduated, I got job offers, but I mean, it was in the last part of my degree when I was about to graduate. Actually, I met a girl who's now my wife. And I, at the time, we started dating. And like I'd always obviously known about the fitness industry, right? And I loved fitness. I was bodybuilding, I was working out, I loved it, right? But I didn't really, I mean, what you said kind of resonated with me when you were like, I could get paid to work out and like to work in this space. And I didn't really like, I knew it intellectually, but I never really made the connection until I started dating this girl. And like, that's what she did. And when she told me what she did, and she told me like her lifestyle and the results she was getting with clients and like what she got to do, I like looked at all these job offers I got to be a lawyer, and I was like, what the fuck is this? I was like, am I gonna go sit in this suit? Like, and again, like you said, like no hate on lawyers. There's a lot of people who do it and love it. I thought I was passionate about it, but like when I actually started like practicing, I was like, man, this is not for me. And when
Yeah.
I found out that I could like work as a coach, as a PT, and actually get paid for it, and especially right being like in the Middle East because I'm in Qatar now. I was in
Yeah.
Kuwait for a year, and like actually knowing you can make a career out of it, man. Like when that light bulb moment switched, I was like, shit, like this is the path I'm meant to be on, man. So it's an amazing feeling, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, no, it's good. Like, I mean, I never became a trainer to make money. I
Hmm.
just became a trainer because it allowed me to do something I loved, and I made
Yeah.
enough money to
Yes.
support myself, you
Hmm.
know? And so that's how it came out to me. Like if you just want to make money, go be an investment banker, or you could be a
Exactly.
lawyer or a doctor. But
100%.
dude, if you wake up every day and you don't enjoy what you're gonna do, or you like dread going to work, I'm just like, man, is that really something that's sustainable? Like, is there any amount of money that's really worth your day-to-day happiness? So like I was lucky that I kind of had that realization from a pretty young age, and I was like, all right, well, I'm just gonna go in on fitness. So that's what
I
I did,
love
man.
that, right? And honestly, like you've nailed it on the head, right? Because I mean, you can imagine the conversation I had to have with my parents when I was like, hey, listen, I'm not going to be a lawyer. But I'm going to be a personal trainer instead.
I'm
But
gonna be a
like it was
trainer. Yeah.
really, and I couldn't really articulate it. And I didn't really understand that at the time. The reason was that, again, it wasn't for money. It was just to do something that I enjoyed. And I mean, I didn't
Yeah.
really connect the dots at the time, but like in retrospect, looking back, I'm so glad that I had the experiences that I did to actually make that decision. And it's funny,
Yeah.
like I guess I was more irresponsible, for lack of a better term, back then. But like, it's actually a good thing, right? Because if I'd been like thinking about only money, right, and only that idea of success that everyone the most of the world puts out there, I might have made a different decision, and my life would have gone in such a different direction, man. Because honestly, like
Yeah.
you said, like if you don't wake up in a good mood, happy to do what you're gonna do for the day, then like what fucking matters how many numbers on the bank account? Like it's not gonna help
Agreed.
your life, right?
Yeah, yeah, I agree for sure. Like I kind of made the decision early on. I was like, all right, I'd much rather make less money, but enjoy my life, enjoy my day-to-day life, enjoy going to work rather than making a lot more money and hating my life Monday through Friday and just living only for the weekends. Like, Brad,
Living
like,
for those
no,
2 days, right?
yeah, a lot of people do that, but teach their own.
100%, man. Yeah, man, thank you for sharing that. I was so curious to know like what your backstory was and how you got into it, man. So the next question I have, man, and I kind of, well, I think I know this from consuming your content, but how would you summarize your fitness philosophy? Like, what does it mean to you, and like, how would you communicate that to other people?
Simplicity. Keep
Mhm.
it very, very simple. If you want to be healthy, then lift weights, get stronger, prioritize getting stronger so you can build muscle. Muscle's the most important thing that you can have on your body to improve quality of life and lifespan. Get your heart rate up with short, intense conditioning. Cardiovascular stuff is really good. All right. It is good, but strength training is the most important thing. And eat more protein. That's like, those are pretty much the three pillars. Really, just like lifting weights and eating more protein would probably be the main two pillars. Cardio is important, but it's, that's my message is like that. And just don't make excuses. Do the work, and just be honest. Be honest with yourself. Do you want it or not? Everything in your life's a choice. Those are pretty much like the reoccurring themes in my messaging.
100%, man. And honestly, I can pick that up from your content. And I think, like I said at the beginning, that's what really attracted me to your content specifically, because, man, you know how it is. You go online onto Instagram or YouTube, and like if you're a normal, like when I say normal, I mean someone who is not as educated about fitness and who's maybe
Yeah,
trying to get
it's
into
not
it.
obsessed. It's not in the industry. They're just, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that's starting. I feel like the barrier to entry is so high because, like, you go on your phone, you open up these accounts, and like there's just a billion pieces of information. And like this dude's saying, "Oh, do this and
Oh
you'll live
yeah,
forever," and this other guy's like, "No, if you do that, you're gonna die." And it's
dude.
just like it's so overwhelming. Like even for us as coaches, right? It gets fucking
Yeah, yeah,
overwhelming.
yeah.
Like, how does a
I
regular
just made a
person deal with
content
it?
about that. I made a piece of content about that yesterday about
Mhm.
nutrition. You got these two huge influencers, one saying this, one saying the exact opposite. And then I'm making a content about how they're both actually right in their own way. But this is what you shouldn't be focusing on this or that. You should actually be focusing on this.
Mhm,
Like, so,
mhm.
bro, and coaches and trainers in the fitness industry is huge. It's a huge industry. And a lot of people, which I do not like, they purposely overcomplicate and convolute the most basic, simple training and nutrition principles so they can profit off of people's ignorance. That's shitty. You
And
shouldn't do that.
like
Just keep things
you
simple.
said, there's so much of it, and like it's just so overwhelming for people, right? And like
Well, it is for sure.
it's just, and I think you've nailed it on the head. I think it's a combination, in my opinion, between obviously wanting to make money, and I guess which is kind of a funnel towards that. Coaches and trainers and nutritionists who post content to get likes and to get follows, right? Because like if you're posting the same thing all the time, what we get told is like, the algorithm is going to get over it or people are going to get bored. But like, that's not the point, right? Like the point is not to to entertain people and give them, this kind of instant dopamine hits and mental candy. It's about taking the most simple principles and distilling that in a way that's actually actionable, right? Because like you said,
Yeah.
if you just imagine like the average person just lifted weights twice a week, ate 25% more protein, and literally if they just did do those two things, like to me, that would solve like 80% of their fucking problems, right?
Oh, it probably would. Yeah. And get at least 7 to 8 hours of sleep.
Solid.
Like yeah, exactly. If you have to distill everything down to as simple form as possible, it would be lift weights and focus on getting stronger, eat more protein, and just fucking get to bed on time. Yeah, agreed.
That's straightforward, right? Yeah, man. And I think and that's like I said, that's what I appreciate so much about your content. And that's what I think we need more of is just that repetition of those key points to like really help people break through and just get rid of all the bullshit, right? Because there's
Sure.
just so much, man. There's just too much. And I feel like if we just make it simple and we instead of focusing on all the bells and whistles, like just take the basics, learn the basics. And like, once you've done that, like, then yes, maybe you can start looking into things that are a little bit more nuanced. But I mean, that's so much further down the line, right? Like, what comes to my mind is like, obviously it's prevalent in any goal in any kind of person. But for example, young guys or young girls wanting to build muscle, they'll be asking about like this superset technique or like how to target the muscle at this angle and do this exercise. And we're just like, man, do a bench press, do a squat, do a deadlift, and get stronger at it until you create a baseline, right? Like, it's boring, but if you attach your mindset to the progress, then it's not boring, right? Because then the progress is what makes it fun, not the variety.
Yeah, dude, that's it, man. And that's why I put out a very simple, direct message all the time. People probably get tired of it. I'm actually trying to figure out ways I can come up with different style of content, but also be very direct and deliver a message that resonates with people.
Straight up, man. And you know what? It's something you've actually mentioned the other day when we had our talk before the show. You were talking about, that Instagram followers or Instagram likes, all of those things, right? Like, they're vanity metrics, right? Because I mean, at the end of the day, like, what is the goal of you putting out that content, right? And I mean, I'm not so for you specifically, but to my mind and watching what you do, it's to help people, right? It's to help people get better. So like, if you have
Yeah.
10 followers and 9 out of those 10 followers actually achieve the improvements and habits that we were talking about just now, that's a fucking win. You could build a profitable business of just fucking 9 people in that space, right? Or you could
Yeah.
have 2 million followers, get a million likes on each post. But if it doesn't actually turn into results, meaning either actually changing someone's life, and in the context of business, making money so you can keep doing what you're doing,
Yeah.
like, that's what matters, right?
No, for sure. Like, dude, I guarantee. And there's literally thousands of influencers with way bigger. And, and dude, maybe they're just posting stupid gimmick exercises that provide people no value and teach them nothing. Or if they're a girl, maybe they're just showing their ass and tits,
Yeah.
and not showing any kind of educational content, but they just get a bunch of likes because they have a bunch of, thirst trap dudes following them. So it's like, it all depends on what your goal is. Like, my goal, and I've always tried to use social media intentionally just to educate and provide value to people.
Yeah. No, 100%, man, agreed. And like you said, it depends on your goal, right? Because if that's the goal, to have millions of followers and just to get likes and stuff, then great. And I think it's important as well that other coaches and PTs hear that, because I mean, even, for me, especially when I first started out, it was intimidating, right? Because you go in and like, there's these coaches with huge followings and all this content and stuff. And, like, it's kind of overwhelming and intimidating, but like, it kind of detracts from the actual goal of what we're here to do, which is to help people,
Yeah.
man. Like, it's to help people get better.
I agreed. And that's why, like, I never, even though there's so much content on social media that I disagree with, I will never go out of my way to call out another online trainer or coach. I won't do that because I don't believe in that. Because if you really calling out people, all it does is it's controversial, and yeah, it might drive you more views and create fucking stupid ass internet drama. But if you really look at it, even if you have a trainer that you really don't like and you don't like the way they train people or their advice, if they have a following and they're putting out a message that actually gets people to just think about their health or be healthier in some way, that person, that trainer that you may not like, still their overall net impact is positive because they're actually helping people. So all these trainers calling out other trainers or talking shit about each other, I feel like it's very immature and unneeded. If you have to talk badly about others to boost yourself up, I think, that's kind of says a lot about you as a person, in my opinion.
100%.
And if you think about it, like, dude, there's a lot of trainers that I don't like, way bigger followings than I do. So I don't follow them. I don't consume their content. I don't let it bother me. But I also know, like, even though I don't like them, they're still probably having a net positive impact on the world. And they're probably helping people. And that is really what it's about, is actually helping people.
100%. I like how you use that term, like net positive impact. And I think that matters so much, right? Like, what is the net impact? Like, I always think about this in kind of a almost an existential way. But if I think about like getting to the end of my life, what do I want to have achieved? And for me, it's like I want to be in a position where I know that I've contributed to this planet becoming net positive. And it doesn't need to be a lot, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't need to be like you don't need to go to fucking Mars or build Amazon or do any of that shit. Like you just need to, in my opinion, make things net positive. Like the time I spent here, the fact that Rory was on this planet was a good thing. Like it moved the needle in
Yeah,
some direction, you know?
for sure, man. I feel the same way. Absolutely.
It's awesome, man. Cool, man. So look, just to go on so we can cover all these juicy things I want to ask you, man. So you made a piece of content. I can't remember exactly how it went, but it really stuck out to me, right? And it was something to do with this, with mental well-being, right? With mental health. And you were saying something about meditation. Now, no hate on meditation. I meditate from time to time, but what is your take on mental health in general? And like, how does fitness intersect with that?
I think dudes specifically, because there's all this fucking shit on social media. There's more dudes are now depressed than ever and all this other shit. I think that's because a lot of fucking dudes are pussies and they don't work out and they don't train hard. That's the honest to God
Mhm.
truth. If you really distill it down, all these dudes that are suffering from mental illness or depression, they don't fucking work out. All right. All they do is probably just sit at home, eat shit food, and jerk off all the time. They don't go out and meet girls. They're not active. So, of course, they're depressed. All right. I don't meditate at all, ever. I personally don't think it would be a good use of my time. Instead of thinking about what I'm going to do, I'd rather just fucking go do it, make it happen. And then meditation for me is intense physical exercise. All right. Like getting my heart rate up so high and becoming so uncomfortable where I feel like I'm going to die. That actually makes me feel the most alive. And after intense physical exercise, I think the clearest. I am in the best, most positive state of mind. I have so many good positive neurotransmitters circulating in my brain, like dopamine, serotonin, endorphins. That is when I have the best moments of clarity. And, kind of like, I don't know, you wouldn't call it an epiphany or anything like that, but that's when I like to make content right after I've worked out or as I'm working out, because I can say things exactly as I mean them. And I'm literally putting myself in a very positive mental state. And that's almost like meditation to me. So that's my take on that. I think most depression, most anxiety, in men, you can't control everyone. This is a blanket statement, but if you suffer from depression or anxiety as a man, you know, you just need to fucking work out, get healthy, eat the right foods, and work out vigorously 3 or 4 times a week. And I think, in my opinion, that will probably alleviate 99% of all the dudes' problems that think they suffer from depression. They can help themselves. You just have to fucking choose to help yourself.
I love it, man. Honestly, absolutely love it. So like, yeah, and I also, because I've seen all these statistics, right? And it just, again, I feel like it comes down to like overcomplicating things, right? Because if we think about ourselves in our primal state, right? Like, how can you, as a man or a woman, but specifically as a man who's meant to be a protector and a provider, like, of course you're going to feel anxious and depressed if it's subconsciously a part of you knows if you are weak and you are overweight
Yeah.
and you don't actually go and do shit, a part of your brain is telling you, like, man, if a tiger jumps out of that bush, man, like you fucked. Like you can't
Yeah,
fight it and you can't
absolutely.
run
You're a
away.
fucking pussy. You're a beta.
Literally.
Yeah, and it's like it's dude, that's not something you should be. You need to fucking take care of yourself. Like
100%.
that's dude, I probably sound like some kind of chauvinistic asshole right now, but I don't mean to. It's really it's all about being healthy. Dude,
Got it.
if you are healthy as a man, dude, you're gonna feel so much better. You're gonna be so much more confident. You're gonna be so much happier.
Straight up, man. Honestly, and like you said, and I loved how you described that feeling of how you feel when you work out, right? Because, like, for
Dude,
example, things like meditation, things like ice baths, all these different things, right, that like are good for our mental well-being. And I believe in them, but I believe in finding what is the outcome that all of these things give you that leads to better mental health. And like when you described doing intense physical activity, you literally what were you saying? You said, I put myself in a position where I literally feel like I'm going to fucking die. I feel uncomfortable and I have to push through that. Now, meditation, if you look at the goal of meditation, the whole goal of it is to get uncomfortable and learn to focus without the distraction. Meditation is not the goal. Sitting on a fucking couch or a pillow and closing your eyes and humming isn't the fucking goal. It's to get to that place, in my opinion, where you are uncomfortable and you need to push through. And I think working out firstly achieves that, but now you have all the other positive benefits of it. Because, like you said, I mean, I've got nothing against it. I meditate from time to time, but I feel like we need to really find the core and the root of why we're doing those things and then apply those practices, right? So I love it, man. And I love that idea of just, being able to move. And taking a look at all those lifestyle factors, right? Because people will be in a situation where they're kind of analyzing and they're saying, why am I depressed? Why am I anxious? All of these things. But when you look, you never work out, you never get sunlight, your sleep is absolutely shit. Like you have no self-confidence, and like, let's not worry about what happened in your past or all these intricate details. Let's just fucking solve the most basic things of
Seriously,
taking care of the fucking body and
stop
brain.
thinking about, oh, I had a troubled childhood. Oh, I grew up poor. Oh, my parents, they were overfeeders or they fed me the wrong food. They conditioned me to eat this unhealthy food. Bro, all that shit that people, all these excuses, and when they overanalyze things, that all they're doing, bro, is just delaying their problems. They're blame shifting, or they're blaming external circumstances, like you have control of your life. You can take control of your life this moment if you decide to, so like that's, yeah, agreed, man. I really agree with that.
And I think it's kind of summing up where we talk about, focusing on what you can control. I think that's such a critical part, right? Because so many of these things, like you say, your past or your circumstance, whatever, those things may not be within your control. But focusing on the things we can control is literally the only way to make progress. And I personally think, because I experienced this, in my life when I started working out, when you get into that weight room or onto anything, into any physical setting, you're focusing on what you can control. Like you are going out, you are doing shit that you can now control, and there's nothing else that can help you. Like you have to be present and you have to fucking put in the work because there's literally nothing else that's going to do it for you. And I think, and I actually want to go deeper into this in a bit, but not only the physicality and the physical benefits of working out, but the mental, the kind of mindset that it creates in you is that I am focusing on what I can control in this moment, which is my effort. I am going up against a challenge and I'm pushing myself through something that is uncomfortable and I'm doing it even though it's uncomfortable. And to me, like if you have those few belief systems instilled in you, plus you have all these other positive physical benefits, like of course you're going to be a fucking machine. Of course you're going to be able to handle shit more effectively,
Absolutely. I'm telling you, man, like working out for me, it's the most important thing to me, honestly. Like I wouldn't be where I am if I didn't genuinely love fucking working out. And it's transformed me, not only physically, it's transformed me more mentally. And that's like, it's really shaped who I am. Obviously, my parents played a role. I had great parents. I'm very lucky. I had some amazing strength coaches in college football that also, had a huge impact on my life, a positive impact. But it's, yes, man, like the benefits of exercise, they're innumerable. Like, dude, if I was gonna be president, I would fucking make it mandatory, to work out. It would be illegal not to work out. So, because I just know how positive, how much of a positive impact it would have on people. Bro, humans are meant to move. Everybody should move. Everybody should work out. Whether you enjoy it or not in the moment doesn't fucking matter. Like the positives far outweigh any kind of temporary discomfort.
And you see, and I think that's it, right? There's just the biggest return on investment for exercising, right? Because and I mean, you mentioned it just permeates into every other area of your life. Like when you are exercising on a regular basis, it positively impacts every single other area of your life, period. Like you cannot possibly show up. Like if you have challenges in your finances or your relationship or your career or whatever, if you have more energy and strength and confidence, like it's not going to solve the problems, but you're going to sure as fuck be in a much better position to deal with those problems and compared to being overweight and tired and just feeling like shit, right? So like it's the foundation, man. And I like how you said, humans, that we're meant to move. And I mean,
Sure.
it's quite interesting if you look at kind of the timeline of things, how quickly, obviously, technology and civilization has built up. I mean, it's only in the last, and I'm going to completely balk the history, but 400-500 years that we've kind of had like any kind of things to assist us. Specifically in the last 100 years, we've had all these advances. But I mean, how fucking easy, and I think you actually made a piece of content on it, but like before, if you were hungry, man, you had to go out and you had to hunt a fucking animal. Like you had to sharpen a spear, you had to run, you had to
Seriously.
hunt that motherfucker, you had to cook it. Now we bitch and moan when we order talabat and it's
And it
like
doesn't get
5 minutes
there.
late, and then like you have to
Yeah,
go
yeah.
downstairs. Like it's mind blowing, man. But it
It
creeps
is.
up, like it creeps up on you. Like even as a coach, man. I mean, I'm from South Africa originally. And like obviously it's of course we have infrastructure there, but it's nothing like the Middle East, right? Everything here is just fucking on demand. And I mean, it does kind of creep up on you over time. Like you start getting used to the idea of ordering things and not going and like small things, right? Like carrying your fucking
Yeah,
groceries from the car. Like
yeah,
it's
yeah, yeah,
tiny
yeah.
things, but it kind of just you kind of get used to it. So I guess people who are not, really practicing fitness on a regular basis and who live in that environment, again, it's not an excuse, but I can understand why it's so challenging when the environment around them is just
Yeah,
so
because
conducive to
it allows them to be just complacent pieces of shit, if I'm
it.
being honest. I know it's like, but dude, just complacency has just become an epidemic, and I think most people, and they're just fucking lazy. And yeah, bro, you really hit the nail on the head, honestly. Like, no, humans we're so smart, we're too smart for our own good. We figured out how to use, you know, computers and phones to make our lives and use technology to make our lives so much easier so we don't even have to move our bodies. We figured out ways to chemically engineer food to make us addicted to it so we can get a dopamine hit from eating low quality junk food. And so then we can instead of eating food for purpose, we just eat food for purely pleasure, So it's like, we've kind of screwed ourselves in many ways, if that makes sense, with technology.
That's funny, right? Because it's so interesting to see that dichotomy, right? It's almost like we literally became too smart for our own good. Like we
Yeah,
literally optimized things so much that it actually ended up screwing us over in the long run, right? And
yeah,
it's interesting because nowadays it's so challenging to get people to exercise. Look, I do personally think in a lot of regions like we are moving in the right direction. But it's so hard to get people to move. And it's it's such a weird thing to think of, right? Because like not only is it something you should do as a human being just because you have a body and you should maintain it, but like it's also such a privilege to be able to do it, right? Because like there's some people who would literally kill to be able to even walk across their living room. And now we go and we bitch and moan if we have to go and do a workout. So I think that
yeah.
perspective shift is fucking mind blowing, man.
It's huge. Yeah, it's huge.
Oh
I
man.
posted about that recently. Just like,
Mm.
dude, you don't have to work out, man. You get to work out. And if you don't feel like working out, just remind yourself there's people all over the world that are stuck in wheelchairs, sick, dying, that would give anything, everything they had in the world just to be healthy enough to work out. So anytime people skip their workouts, I think that you're being a piece of shit. That you're treating yourself, you're being a lazy piece of shit. That's my opinion. I'm really, I'm really, dude, I have very strong opinions, and I know I can be polarizing, controversial, but I feel very justified in my beliefs because I've had 16 surgeries, orthopedic surgeries on my ankles, knees, shoulders. I've spent over 3 years of my life in a wheelchair on crutches, not being able to walk. So I know what it's like not to be able to work out. And working out means everything to me. And to be able to not do what matters most to you, bro, it's fucked up. And so I appreciate working out so much. And that's why, dude, I put out that message.
Love it, man. And if you don't mind me asking on that, how did you manage how did you manage that period when you were recovering from those injuries and you didn't get to work out? Like what was kind of going through your mind, and what did you use as kind of, I don't want to say a substitute, but just something to give you the benefits that we've already been speaking about, specifically mentally, when you weren't able to work
For
out?
sure. To be, I actually always found a way to work out just because I know getting my heart rate up and exercising is so beneficial, both physically and mentally. I always worked around any injury I've had. So whether it was a knee or ankle injury, where I would work out my upper body, I would get on a salt bike, use one leg, get on a rower with one leg. I've always trained around all my injuries, so I've been able to continue to move my body. All right. I never, ever felt sorry for myself. You know, people that feel sorry for themselves in a victim mindset, those people, you know, they're never going to go anywhere in life. Always focus on what you can do and never focus on what you cannot do. All right. Even though you may be limited, doesn't matter. Focus on what you can do and do that.
I love it, man. And like you say, it's, focusing on what you can control. And there really are, there's no excuses when you look at the world through that lens, right? Because if you come up with those excuses, let's be honest, if you find excuses, it's because you're looking for them. Like, you don't just find shit randomly. Like, if you are looking for it,
Yeah,
like, you will find it, right? And if you look for
absolutely.
solutions, you'll find solutions, man. So that's freaking amazing. And on that, you mentioned it a few times. It was one of the questions I was excited to ask you about. What are your thoughts on dopamine, like in a fitness context and just like in a general life context?
Dopamine's everything. That's my thought. Dopamine drives all human behavior. Every human goes through their entire life looking for that next hit of dopamine. So dopamine is, and you need to understand that. Like, if you do that and you recognize that you're just trying to get dopamine, your next hit of dopamine, you can actually learn to better control your behavior, and you can start being more selective on how you get your dopamine. So it's, people need to hear that. Actually, I talk about dopamine a lot, you know, just because it's the primary driver of all human behavior. So every every human, every animal is driven by dopamine. So you just got to understand that, and then you need to understand how your body gets dopamine. You can get it from a variety of different ways. You know, you can get dopamine from eating shit food, getting drunk, doing drugs, having sex, achieving a challenging task, accomplishing a lifelong goal. You can get dopamine from doing intense physical exercise. There's all different kinds of ways you can get your dopamine. You just need to be selective on how you get your dopamine, because there's no free dopamine. You always have to pay for your dopamine in some way or another. You can get the cheap dopamine, which is eating shit, doing drugs, drinking alcohol, but you end up paying for that later. All right. Or you can pay for your dopamine up front with like intense physical exercise or delaying gratification, achieving some kind of challenging task or goal, and you pay for that up front, and then you get the reward later, and then you get the dopamine. So it's like, be everyone needs to be mindful, and everyone needs to be selective on how they're going to get their dopamine. When someone goes and gets drunk on the weekend because they want to celebrate, just know you're doing that for dopamine. You're trading that short-term pleasure, and you're actually causing yourself long-term pain.
I love that, man. I
Those
love
are
how
my
you
thoughts.
summarize that up, because like it really is, right? It really is just the absolute key driver of absolutely everything. And I mean, for me, when I started doing my initial research on dopamine and understanding the roles and the effects and how it works, I was like, man, like, why is this not the first thing that we're taught? Like, why is there not like a fucking handbook that they give you when you're like old enough to read that teaches you about dopamine, with the next chapter being on fitness and the next chapter being on nutrition? Because like, dopamine is everything, right? Like, it's literally the basis of every single action and decision that we make. And what I find quite interesting, because I absolutely love just neuroscience in general, but obviously dopamine has different roles, and its main role is to drive behavior. But in order to actually get any physical movement, like to literally move any part of our body, dopamine is also involved in movement, which is why, unfortunately, when people have Parkinson's and they can't control their movements, it's some challenge with the dopamine system. And to me, like that just like summarized it so nicely, right? Because dopamine is not only about literally taking any action, but it's also involved in the act of physical movement. And you've summed it up so nicely, right? Because there's so many places you can get dopamine, but that term you use, cheap dopamine, like that is the key because you can do a line of cocaine, you can watch a bunch of porn, you can eat a bunch of shit food, and you're going to get a ton of dopamine, right? But
You will.
whatever you've taken and however, and I mean, I was doing some research on this, but basically the way that we're talking about it is the height of the peak. Like if that dopamine goes up and accelerates like explosively and it's not sustainable, you have that crash, right? You have that massive crash, which makes you feel like shit, which ironically makes you go and pursue that bad behavior again. Whereas if you look
Yeah.
at things like good food, for example, like protein, tyrosine and protein, literally creating fucking dopamine, like literally the building block of dopamine, intense physical activity, doing challenging things, you get the boost, but you don't get that depletion. You don't get that lowering. You don't get the trough. You just get the positive effects, man. And I don't think people understand that enough, right? Because it kind of ties into the whole instant gratification culture because I want my
Yeah.
dopamine now, right? Like if I can go and I can eat this food, like I
I
didn't
don't
need to
want to
do
work
anything
for it.
for this. Like, but if I do
Yeah.
an intense physical activity, I delay gratification and I smash a big goal that I have, like you'll get more dopamine and you get to get it again, right? Like you
And
get to
again, that
re-enjoy it.
positive benefit.
So no, man, like really, it's just this idea of dopamine and how it ties in. And that's what really was, to be honest, I think it was like your second or third piece of content where you spoke that I saw anyways, where you spoke about dopamine because that, as I'm sure you know, like I explained, like a big mission of mine on this podcast is not only to talk about physical health and fitness, but also talk about mental health and fitness and where they connect, which is basically they overlap completely. But dopamine, I feel, is one of those areas that really needs to be spoken about more, right? Because we live in such
Yeah.
a dopamine hit. And I mean, I haven't personally been to Dubai, but from what I've heard, I live in Doha. I mean, it's kind of a sea of dopamine. Yeah. Like there's instant gratification, there's fans, like
Right.
it's all available, like
Yeah.
at the tip of your fingers, man. It's right there.
It certainly is and can be. And like I said, man, you just got to realize you need to be mindful and selective on how you get your dopamines. The dopamine you're getting, is it helping you or is it hurting you? You know? So you got to realize that, man. It's just like there's no free dopamine. You got to fucking pay for it one way or another. It's much better to pay for it up front by delaying gratification and then getting that reward at the end rather than just taking cheap dopamine and then paying for it afterwards, becoming a fucking drug addict or an alcoholic or becoming metabolically sick and obese and dying.
That's it, right? It's a kind of like buying things on credit. Like I can buy a car right now. I can buy that
Yeah.
Lamborghini on credit, but man, I'm gonna pay fucking, I don't know what the interest
Yeah.
rate is,
Paying a
but it's a
shitload of interest.
shitload.
Yeah. You're not really buying it, right? Your fucking bank owns it. You
Exactly,
know,
man.
that's
Man,
something
all
I
right,
would.
cool, man. So I just want to end off with one question, man. If you had like one sentence, so if you had one sentence that every single person in the world would hear and they would understand it fully in their own language, what would you say?
If you want, you will. That's what it would be. If you want, you will. Probably like that, dude, if you truly want something, then you're gonna fucking do what it takes to do it, you know? And basically your actions always speak louder than words. Always. So it's like, don't lie to yourself, man. Like for me, I know what I want. And that's what, inspires me to wake up every day and do what I do. But like if you want, you will. That would be certainly be probably the one thing. Um, Another thing I would tell everyone that they need to understand is that everything in your life is a choice. Whether you realize it or not, everything in your life is a choice. Like
Beautiful.
people never take responsibility for their life and they never understand that, health and their life, right? It's 100% your responsibility. You get out of life what you put in. That
Fucking
those are
amazing.
all like that. If you just really distill everything down, everything in life's a choice. That'd probably be it, actually, bro. Everything in your life's a
Yeah.
choice.
It's lovely, man. And I like that you said, that term responsibility. Like that's one of my favorite terms because when you break that word down, it's literally responsibility. Like it is your ability to
Yeah.
respond. And if you give that up, then the fuck are you doing? Like you're just giving away
Yeah.
your power, right?
Yeah. That's a good way to put it. Break that down. Responsibility. I like that a lot. Your
Awesome.
ability to respond. Yeah. So true, man.
Literally the key. Awesome, man. All right, cool, man. Tanner, thank you so much, man. I really appreciate your time. Honestly, it's been so cool to talk to you, man. I love the way you look at the world. I love your unfiltered opinion, man. I think we need more of it. I really think it's amazing. And yeah, man, just thank you. Thank you for fucking crushing it.
Yeah.
Thank you for doing what you do, bro. And I really do think the world is a better place because you are in it. So thank you for taking the
Hey,
time today.
Larry, I appreciate you, man. I really appreciate you having me on your podcast. Please, if you put this out, let me know. Send me an email. I'd love to share it, on my social media. So I appreciate it, man. Good on you for doing it. And I hope you keep doing it. Nothing, Rome was not built in a day. So just, bro, keep pushing. Be consistent. All right.